The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. All right, welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky. And joining us on the SportsTownChicago.com hotline is Anubhav. Anubhav, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing well.
Now, you're one of the biggest Bulls fans that I know. What's your take on this season?
Well, Ryan, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I'm not totally surprised because of all the offseason moves they've made, let's be honest, really not all of them make sense at all.
Yeah. Well, remember, he said, Gar Foreman said, we're getting younger and more athletic, so then he signs a bunch of guys that are over 30.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly, and now, I mean, when I look at the Chicago Bulls, I'm just like, what are we going to expect? If they're going to play against elite teams, they're going to give elite level performance. But if they play against poor teams, they're going to give them poor performance, and that's just a sign of a mediocre team. And look, in pro sports, the worst places to be mediocre.
It is, and a very, very poor performance last night or a couple nights ago against Dallas. What was kind of your take on, just that losing on a last-second shot at home to the worst team in the league and then getting swept?
Yeah, so to that, all I have to say is on that last play, I don't understand why Niko Mirotic was even out there.
Exactly.
Fred Hoiberg thinks he's playing good defense, probably. We all know Hoiberg isn't a good coach. He doesn't know what lineup should be out there and when, and he has proven that he cannot make in-game adjustments to try to win games and pull them out at the end because the majority of the time they're getting blown out in the fourth quarter.
Exactly, and listen, I know Fred Hoiberg's a nice guy. I'm pretty sure he's a nice person, but when it comes to being an NBA coach, I just don't think he has it. You need somebody who can get through these professionals and there needs to be some credibility.
Yeah, there is none on the Bulls.
Right,
injuries
that's
are
the thing.
out. The injuries is the Bulls always say they're not going to blame injuries, and then they do.
Yeah,
it's pathetic.
And then there's also, the fact they go out and get Rajon Rondo, and, it seems like he's going to be a starter on the team, which, okay, fine, he's going to be a starter, but then Fred Hoiberg refuses to start him after a while. And Rondo
doesn't tell him.
Right, and Rondo can't figure out why, and apparently an assistant coach had to tell him, it was because of his minus 21 rating or whatever it was, and it's just ridiculous. If Hoiberg can't even communicate with his players, how are they ever going to get to the playoffs? How are they ever going to be a top 4 team in the East? Because they're certainly not going to be that this year.
Really, from the moment when they fired Thibodeau, they went from championship contenders, and then they hired Hoiberg, and then they became playoff hopefuls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
So I don't know. I was going to ask you, Anubhav, how you feel just sort of about Rondo not starting and how he wasn't how they went out and got him and said he was going to be a part of this team, and then all of a sudden he's non-existent on this team.
Yeah, this is a really interesting scenario because at this point, why do you still have Rondo on the roster when the coach is not a big fan of him? Why is he still on here? Why don't you just accept the reality that, look, it was a mistake. We're going to own up to it. We're going to release him, cut him. But I think what they're really waiting for is so they can look for an opportunity to trade him. So that way, that way they will have to tell Jerry that, hey, at least we didn't waste money. We just traded it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why he probably won't allow Fred Hoiberg to be fired at the end of the year, since he's still got 3 years, $15 million left on his deal, and Reinsdorf will prioritize that over helping the organization move forward and get back on the winning track.
Exactly, and one of the saddest things about Reisendorf ownership is really the loyalty and just looking at the price tag on every single thing, and not making the right calls, because such moves, this is what will set your team back for literally the next 5-10 years, and this is not good. And in NBA, look, it takes a while to actually get back to being a contender. You need a top 5 player. And again, Bulls had that with Rose, but we all know what happened there, and now it's really sad, because when I started really actually following sports, and of course the Bulls, D Rose, Joakim Noah, these guys were the reason why I would watch them, and now they're not here. Most of that core is gone, and it's like, now what am I watching?
Right, and and that is something, that kind of small era where John Paxson was making very good picks. He drafted Luol Deng, Joakim Noah, and Derrick Rose, 3 key starters that were big players during the success during the Thibodeau era. And right now, their first-round picks, they're not even playing, which means Fred Hoiberg is not developing them right. I mean, it's really hard to believe that these guys couldn't help out the team right now. They're under 500. I mean, would it really hurt to see what they got, what they have? And as you saw, Valentine went off a week ago, I believe, against Washington. He poured in 19 points.
Yep.
Exactly. And look, at this point, I'm done with the whole veteran signings and whatnot. I want to see Jimmy Butler with the young kids we have. That means Jared Grant, Denzel Valentine. Play these guys. I really want to see what we have. And I will say this: I was listening to, I think I was listening to Captain Company with David Kaplan, and I think one of the interesting things I heard from him was, it's kind of like Jerry Angelo in a way. Like, look at Jerry Angelo's last few picks before he got fired. I mean, they were awful.
Yeah.
And just like this, and now look at Gar Forman. Look at his last 5 picks. They're really not that good.
And also look at his picks before Joakim Noah. He had been in charge since 2003.
Yeah, that's the thing. He didn't have. I mean, especially when you look at Gar Forman, he's been in the organization since 1998. We looked at this a couple weeks ago. He was a scout, and then he sort of worked his way up, and he was promoted general manager, I think, in 07, 08. But, of course, he's working with John Paxson. And, I mean, there's just been a lot of bad moves. I mean, think about when the Bulls were so bad after the Jordan era. Gar Forman was scouting those players. So, I mean, it's not like he was starting off on the right foot.
And they traded LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, they also traded LaMarcus Aldridge and refused to draft Draymond Green, and instead got Marcus Teague.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if you guys also remember, but back in 2003, I think the Bulls had a chance of actually drafting Dwayne Wade, but they were like, we're not going to trade Danielle Marshall, so
I think you're right.
Stick with our 6th or 7th pick and take Kirk Heinrich.
Who, by the way, is the franchise's all-time leader in 3-pointers made.
Yeah, that's kind of embarrassing.
It's sad, but I don't know. Look, I've been very consistent, and Ryan, you can attest to this. Until Gar and Pax until they're in the chair, I just cannot see this team really winning it.
Now, who do you think is more at fault between Fred Hoiberg and then Gar Forman and John Paxson?
Great question. I think I will go with Gar Forman, especially Gar Forman, because Fred Hoiberg's hire was completely on him. John Paxson was he's like, okay, now you're taking this one. And, I mean, again, I think I've heard also that Tom Thibodeau really didn't have any problems with John Paxson, at least not that much. It was mostly Gar Forman, so clearly you could just see, with Gar Forman, again, when your organization is winning, look, nobody pays attention to things like this. But when your organization is mediocre and losing badly, everybody will pay attention to every single little thing because, look, it can't be just like it's all on him. I know right now Tom Thibodeau is not doing too well in Minnesota, and I'm pretty sure he understands that. Look, he's got a pretty young team, but I know in a few years they'll challenge Golden State. I know that. They just have to develop. But as far as Fred Hoiberg goes, look, I think Fred Hoiberg, honestly, he should be gone by the end of this year. But I think best chance, realistic chance, I think I should say, would probably be after next season. So the summer of 2018, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a feeling that he'll be gone when his contract runs up.
So you think he'll be here for like a couple more years?
I have a feeling Jerry Reinsdorf is going to say he doesn't want to eat that money, and also he doesn't want to fire a former player.
Yeah, that's okay. There you go. That's another point you brought up. And look, I'm not trying to predict the future or anything, but it would not shock me at all if the Bulls literally go up to Kirk Heinrich and say, "Hey, you want to coach the Chicago Bulls?" Because they love Kirk so much.
Yeah,
they can do They will literally do anything.
Yeah, it depends how long they want to hold on to Hoiberg, because, I mean, they were talking to Fred Hoiberg, a couple years before Tom Thibodeau was even fired. So they were, talking to him a while, and they were in cahoots, and he was going to be the new head coach and stuff. So, it just depends. It depends, if Fred Hoiberg is going to develop some of these players, he needs to develop Bobby Portis and Denzel Valentine and some of these other players, because those players are the future, and they drafted them, and they were good draft picks at the time. These are some guys who have size, they can shoot, they can drive. I mean, Denzel Valentine was a point guard at Michigan State. So, it's just interesting. It's interesting why he won't develop these guys. The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.